I am Frances Parker, 32 years old, and until 3 months ago, I was just another chemical engineer at Nexus Innovations, dreaming of making my mark. My breakthrough in sustainable packaging could have revolutionized our industry, but my VP Marcus Cooper had other plans. He called my work worthless to my face, then tried to steal it behind my back. What he never expected was that I had protected myself in ways he never imagined. Before I tell you how my idea was stolen and how justice was finally served, let me know where you are watching from in the comments, and hit that subscribe button if you have ever been underestimated in your career. When I first joined Nexus Innovations 6 years ago, fresh out of MIT with my master's degree in chemical engineering, I was full of ambition and naivety. Nexus had a reputation as an industry leader in packaging solutions, and landing a position there felt like winning the lottery. The glass and steel headquarters in downtown Boston projected an image of innovation and forward thinking, but beneath the sleek surface lay a corporate culture I wasn't prepared for. From day one, I noticed the gender imbalance. In a department of 30 engineers, only 4 of us were women. Most leadership meetings featured a table of men in nearly identical suits with perhaps 1 or 2 women present. I tried not to let it bother me, focusing instead on the work itself, which was challenging and engaging. Marcus Cooper was the Vice President of Research and Development, a position he'd held for almost 15 years. In his early 50s, Marcus had the confidence of someone who had never been questioned. His salt and pepper hair and expensive suits gave him an air of authority that intimidated most junior staff. I noticed early on how he would interrupt female engineers during presentations, but give men the floor without hesitation. Allison Reed was my saving grace in those early years. As the only female senior director, she had carved out respect through sheer brilliance and persistence. With her short auburn hair and direct gaze, Allison never minced words but always made time to mentor younger women in the company. "They'll judge you twice as harshly," she told me once, "so be 3 times as prepared." Jason Martinez worked in the lab next to mine. We started at Nexus within months of each other, and his friendly demeanor made the adjustment period easier. Jason had an easygoing nature that belied his sharp intellect, and he never participated in the subtle exclusionary tactics some other male colleagues employed. Though I rarely interacted with him directly, Daniel Wright, our CEO, had a reputation for valuing innovation above all else. A former engineer himself, Daniel had built Nexus from a small startup to a corporation with over 5,000 employees nationwide. When he visited the R&D department, which happened perhaps twice a year, everyone stood a little straighter. Rebecca Turner served as Marcus's executive assistant. Always impeccably dressed and efficient, Rebecca seemed completely loyal to Marcus on the surface. It wasn't until later that I discovered her true feelings about her boss's management style. My first few years at Nexus were focused on learning and contributing to existing projects. I worked on improving the thermal resistance of food packaging and reducing plastic content in shipping materials. My performance reviews were consistently positive, though I noticed my male peers seemed to advance more quickly despite similar achievements. The idea that would change everything came to me during a weekend hike in the White Mountains. I observed how fallen leaves decomposed on the forest floor, returning to the soil while maintaining structural integrity for weeks or months, depending on conditions. What if we could create packaging that mimicked this natural process precisely, not just biodegradable in the conventional sense, but responsive to specific environmental triggers? For months, I dedicated every spare moment to developing this concept. My tiny apartment became a secondary lab. My kitchen table disappeared under notebooks, sample materials, and testing equipment. I spent thousands of dollars of my own money on specialized compounds that might achieve the effect I was seeking. The breakthrough happened at 3 in the morning on a Tuesday. I had been testing variations of a cellulose-based polymer blend with natural enzymes that could remain dormant until activated by specific conditions. When the sample maintained perfect structural integrity in dry conditions but decomposed completely in simulated compost within 48 hours, I knew I had something revolutionary. The next morning, running on 2 hours of sleep but buzzing with excitement, I requested a meeting with my immediate supervisor to share my findings. He seemed impressed enough to schedule a department presentation the following week. I spent the next several days refining my presentation, anticipating questions and preparing demonstration samples. My heart was racing as I entered the conference room. The projector displayed my title slide, Environmentally Responsive Biodegradable Packaging. I had rehearsed my introduction dozens of times, but seeing Marcus Cooper's stern face at the head of the table still sent a wave of anxiety through me. I took a deep breath and began the presentation that I believed would elevate my career at Nexus Innovations. The conference room was filled with 15 members of the R&D team, including Marcus Cooper in his usual spot at the head of the table. I noticed Allison was absent, attending a conference in Germany that week. Her absence felt significant, like missing a shield in battle. I began my presentation with confidence, explaining the market need for truly biodegradable packaging solutions. The statistics were compelling: over 80 million tons of packaging waste entering landfills annually in the United States alone. Consumer demand for sustainable products increasing by 20% year over year. The competitive advantage a breakthrough would provide. I was 3 slides in when Marcus first interrupted me. "Francis, these market insights are readily available. Can we skip ahead to whatever technical contribution you believe you've made?" His tone carried clear skepticism, emphasizing, "Believe," as if my work was mere fantasy. I nodded professionally and advanced to the technical details, explaining the novel cellulose polymer matrix I had developed. I was describing the enzyme activation process when Marcus interrupted again. "This sounds remarkably similar to the Takahashi approach from last year's Tokyo conference. Are you familiar with their work?" Marcus's question had a trap embedded within it. "Yes, I am," I replied calmly, having anticipated this comparison. The Takahashi method relies on external application of enzymes at disposal facilities. My approach incorporates dormant enzymes within the material itself, activated only under specific conditions that occur in composting, but not during normal use or storage. Marcus leaned back in his chair with a dismissive gesture. "Continue." As I presented my lab results, complete with degradation, time-lapse documentation, and strength testing comparisons, I could see genuine interest from most of my colleagues. Jason was nodding encouragingly. Some were taking detailed notes. One senior engineer leaned forward, clearly engaged. I concluded with market applications and next development steps, feeling cautiously optimistic about the reception. Then Marcus cleared his throat. "Francis, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but I'm not seeing anything groundbreaking here. This appears to be an incremental modification of existing technologies at best." His words fell like a hammer. "The degradation rates you're showing are marginally better than current market solutions, and I question whether the production costs would be commercially viable." I tried to respond. "The production process I've outlined actually reduces costs by eliminating. We have limited R&D resources." Marcus continued as if I hadn't spoken. "I don't see enough potential here to allocate team resources. But thank you for sharing your weekend project." The dismissal was clear and cutting. Weekend project minimized months of intensive work. As the meeting dispersed, a few colleagues gave me sympathetic glances, but most avoided eye contact entirely. Jason caught up with me in the hallway. "That was rough. For what it's worth, I thought your concept was brilliant." I managed a tight smile. "Thanks. I don't understand what happened in there." "Between us," Jason lowered his voice, 2 weeks ago Craig presented a much less developed concept for packaging material with half the biodegradability potential of yours, and Marcus approved a full research budget and 2 additional staff for it. Craig was one of Marcus's favored team members, a mediocre engineer with excellent political skills. The implications were clear. That evening, Allison called from Germany. "I heard about your presentation." Marcus sent me a dismissive summary. What really happened? I recounted the meeting in detail, my voice catching despite my efforts to remain professional. "Listen to me," Francis Allison said firmly. "Your instincts about this technology are right. Marcus has always been threatened by innovation that doesn't come through his chosen channels. Don't give up on this." Her confidence helped stabilize my wavering self-belief. What should I do? He's blocked any official resources. Keep working on it independently. Document everything meticulously. I've seen this pattern before. Taking Allison's advice, I continued my research in secret. The next day, I discovered an unused storage room in a remote corner of the building's basement level. With some cleaning and a few carefully acquired pieces of equipment, I created a small, unofficial lab space. For the next 2 months, I worked double shifts. Official projects during the day, my biodegradable packaging research during lunch breaks, evenings, and weekends. I kept meticulous records, dated notebooks, photographs, video documentation, material acquisition, receipts, test results. Everything was duplicated with one set stored securely away from Nexus property. I noticed Marcus watching me more closely than before. Twice he questioned my presence in the building on weekends, and I created plausible excuses about catching up on official project work. The breakthrough came on a Sunday evening. After hundreds of iterations, I developed a formulation that achieved everything I had envisioned: strength, comparable to conventional packaging, shelf-stable in normal conditions, yet completely biodegradable within 3 weeks in. Compost settings. The production process was scalable and cost-effective. That night, I made a decision that would prove crucial. I submitted a patent application in my own name, not through Nexus's legal department. My employment contract had a clause about inventions created using company resources, but I had carefully used personal funds for all materials and conducted the key work off company time. I had created a protective legal foundation while keeping detailed records to prove my independent development. As I submitted the application electronically at 2 a.m. from my apartment, I felt both exhilarated and terrified. I was taking a massive risk, but something told me it was necessary. I couldn't have known then just how right that instinct would prove to be. 3 weeks after filing my patent application, I received notification that it had been accepted for review. The email arrived during my lunch break, sending a surge of vindication through me. I celebrated quietly, telling only Jason about this development. "This is huge, Francis," he said, genuine excitement in his voice. "How long until you know if it's approved?" "The examiner has to review it against existing patents. Could be months." Around this same time, I began noticing a shift in how Marcus treated me. Previously, he had simply been dismissive. Now there was an edge of hostility. In department meetings, he questioned my contributions on unrelated projects. My quarterly performance review suddenly contained criticisms that had never appeared before: communication issues. Not a team player overestimates her contributions. Most concerning, I found myself excluded from meetings I would normally attend. Projects I had contributed to substantially were presented without my involvement. When I inquired about a particular product development discussion, I should have been part of. My immediate supervisor looked uncomfortable. "Marcus wanted to keep that meeting focused on the core team," he explained weakly. "I am on the core team," I pointed out. "I developed the temperature resistance protocol they're building on." He avoided my eyes. "I know. It's just directives from above. I'm sorry." A week later, passing by a conference room, I overheard Marcus enthusiastically describing a new initiative to several senior directors. Peering through the glass wall, I saw presentation slides that looked disturbingly familiar. The words were different, but the concept illustrations resembled my biodegradable packaging research. My stomach dropped. I lingered by the door until the meeting ended, then approached Rebecca, who was gathering Marcus's materials. "That presentation looked interesting," I said casually. "Who's leading the new biodegradable packaging project?" Rebecca glanced around quickly. "A new team under Craig. Marcus fast-tracked it last week. Top priority." Craig! Marcus's protege. The same person who had received resources when my nearly identical proposal was rejected. That afternoon, I discovered my badge access to the materials testing lab had been revoked. When I inquired with security, they informed me the request had come directly from Marcus's office, citing departmental restructuring. Unable to contain my anger any longer, I requested a meeting with Marcus. To my surprise, he agreed to see me immediately. Francis, he greeted me with artificial warmth when I entered his office. What can I do for you? I'd like to understand why I've been removed from the materials testing lab rotation when my current project requires those resources, I said, keeping my voice level. Ah, yes, we're consolidating lab access to maximize efficiency. Budget considerations. Then why does Craig's new biodegradable packaging team have expanded access? That project looks remarkably similar to the concept you dismissed when I presented it 3 months ago. Marcus's expression hardened. Be very careful with what you're implying, Francis. Craig's team is developing proprietary technology based on research directions the company has been exploring for years. Research I initiated, I countered. My work that you called a weekend project with no potential. Marcus stood his imposing frame, towering over his desk. Your concept was derivative and underdeveloped. Craig's team has taken a completely different approach with commercial viability. If you're suggesting any impropriety, I remind you that making false accusations is grounds for termination. The threat was unmistakable. I held his gaze. I'm simply trying to understand my changing role in the department. Perhaps your role should change, Marcus said coldly. Your recent performance suggests you might be better suited to quality assurance rather than innovation. Think about whether you want to continue on this path, Francis. I left his office shaking with anger and fear. He was simultaneously stealing my idea and threatening my career. That evening, Jason met me at a coffee shop 3 blocks from the office. After ensuring no Nexus employees were nearby, I confided everything: my secret lab, the patent application, Marcus's threats. You need to document all of this, Jason advised. This is textbook intellectual property theft and workplace retaliation. I've been keeping records, but I need more information about what's happening with Craig's team. Their project outline, development timeline. Jason hesitated, then committed. I'll see what I can find out. Craig asked for my input on a testing protocol. I can use that to get more details. Over the next 2 weeks, Jason became my eyes and ears, gathering crucial intelligence. Craig's team was rushing to develop a prototype using a formulation nearly identical to mine, with just enough variations to claim originality. Their timeline was aggressive, aiming for a board presentation in 1 month. Unexpectedly, Rebecca became another ally. She approached me in the parking garage one evening looking nervous. I know what's happening, she said quietly. I've been Marcus's assistant for 7 years, and I've seen this pattern before. 2 other engineers left the company after similar situations. Why are you telling me this? Because it's wrong, she said simply. And because I'm tired of enabling it. Rebecca began discreetly sharing critical information, meeting schedules, document copies, overheard conversations. Through her, I learned that Marcus planned to present his department's breakthrough innovation to the board of directors in 3 weeks, positioning Craig as the lead developer and himself as the visionary who guided the research. The stress began taking a physical toll. I developed insomnia, losing sleep to anxiety and late-night strategy sessions. I lost 8 pounds in 2 weeks. Each morning I arrived at work wondering if it would be my last day, if Marcus would find a pretext to fire me before the board presentation. Self-doubt crept in during vulnerable moments. Was I overreacting? Was my concept truly as innovative as I believed? Maybe Craig had independently developed something similar. But the evidence Rebecca and Jason gathered eliminated any doubt. This was deliberate theft carefully orchestrated by Marcus. The question now was how to prove it before my career at Nexus was destroyed. And with each passing day, the clock ticked closer to the board presentation that would cement the theft of my intellectual property. The notification arrived via email on a Tuesday morning, exactly 1 week before the scheduled board presentation. My patent application had been approved. I stared at my screen in disbelief, reading the official language, confirming that patent number 10736294 for enzymatically activated biodegradable packaging material was now registered in my name, Francis Parker. Under different circumstances, this would have been the most triumphant moment of my professional career. Instead, it felt like ammunition in a war I never wanted to fight. I printed the patent documentation and secured it in my apartment, then headed to work with my mind racing. That same afternoon, Rebecca sent me a calendar invitation to a pre-board documentation review in Marcus's office. The message contained a coded warning we had established. Full presentation package for review. This meant Marcus would be revealing all details of the project he planned to present to the board. I arrived at the meeting to find Marcus, Craig, and two senior engineers from Craig's team. Marcus barely acknowledged my presence. "Francis, take detailed notes. We'll need a complete record of this session," he instructed dismissively. For the next hour, I watched in silent fury as they reviewed the presentation that would introduce Nexus eco-brake packaging to the board and executive leadership. Slide after slide displayed research that was fundamentally mine, with technical specifications nearly identical to my patented formulation. The projected market impact, production costs, and biodegradation metrics matched my findings almost exactly. Most infuriating was watching Marcus position himself as the visionary who had identified the potential for this technology and guided Craig's team to success. Craig, for his part, accepted undeserved credit with practiced humility. After the others left, Marcus asked me to stay behind. When we were alone, his pretense dropped. "You've been unusually quiet, Francis. No comments on our groundbreaking project." I met his gaze directly. "You know exactly why." A slow smile spread across his face. Still harboring resentment that your concept wasn't selected for development. You should be flattered that some elements were incorporated into a viable product." "Some elements. The entire technology is mine. You rejected it publicly, then recreated it with a different team." Marcus's smile vanished. "Prove it. Your word against mine and an entire development team. Who do you think the board will believe, the VP with 15 years of successful innovation, or a mid-level engineer with a history of overestimating her contributions? I have documentation of my original research. Conducted where? Using company resources on company time. That would make it Nexus property regardless. But more importantly," he leaned forward, voice hardening, "any claim that you conducted unauthorized research could be construed as corporate espionage. Misuse of company resources, grounds for immediate termination and potential legal action." The threat hung in the air between us. Marcus had maneuvered me into an impossible position. If I fought for recognition of my work, he would destroy my career and possibly pursue legal action. If I remained silent, I would watch him take credit for my innovation. "You have a choice to make." Francis, Marcus said, his voice almost gentle now. "You can be a team player. Accept that this is how innovation works in the real world, and perhaps receive some acknowledgement on the development team. Or you can pursue this misguided crusade and find yourself not only unemployed, but unemployable in this industry." I left his office without responding, my mind numb with the magnitude of the injustice. In the bathroom, I locked myself in a stall and experienced my first ever panic attack. My chest constricted painfully, breathing became shallow and difficult, and tears streamed down my face as I struggled to regain control. Allison, my mentor and potential ally, was still on extended leave following minor surgery. The timing couldn't have been worse. Without her influence at the senior level, I felt completely vulnerable. As I splashed cold water on my face, trying to erase the evidence of tears, Rebecca entered the bathroom. "Francis, are you okay? You looked pale when you left Marcus's office." I shook my head, unable to maintain the professional facade any longer. "He's taking full credit for my technology and threatening to claim I committed corporate espionage if I fight back." Rebecca's expression shifted from concern to determination. "You need to know something. Marcus has been preparing this presentation for weeks, positioning Craig as the inventor and himself as the visionary director. The board meeting is now his moment of triumph. Daniel specifically requested this presentation after hearing rumors about a game-changing sustainability breakthrough in R&D. She lowered her voice further. Marcus doesn't just want credit. He's negotiating for a substantial bonus and promotion to executive vice president based on this innovation. There's too much at stake for him to back down. Then it's over, I said, defeat washing over me. He wins. Unless, Rebecca hesitated, unless you have something definitive, something irrefutable that proves your ownership. The patent approval flashed in my mind, but I hesitated to reveal it even to Rebecca. If Marcus learned about it prematurely, he might find a way to undermine it or accelerate his timeline. Maybe I said noncommittally, but how would I even get a chance to present evidence I'm not invited to the board meeting? Rebecca smiled slightly. That part I might be able to help with. As Marcus's assistant, I prepare the attendee list and supporting materials for his presentations. He never checks the details. That night alone in my apartment, I hit my lowest point. I seriously considered quitting, walking away from Nexus entirely, rather than enduring more of Marcus's manipulation and threats. I drafted a resignation letter, finger hovering over the send button for several minutes before I closed the email unsent. Instead, I called Jason and asked him to meet me at an all-night diner far from any location frequented by Nexus employees. Over coffee at 1 a.m, I shared everything: the patent approval, Marcus's threats, Rebecca's information about the board presentation. You can't quit, Jason said, firmly after listening. Not when you're this close to vindication. Close. Marcus has the entire system rigged against me. Except for one thing, Jason pointed out. You have the patent, legal government-issued proof that this is your technology. That changes everything. I shook my head. He'll claim I developed it using company resources, which would make it Nexus property regardless of whose name is on the patent. Did you use company resources? No. I was meticulous about that. Personal funds, off-hours work, private lab space. And you documented all of that? I nodded. Then we have a plan to make, Jason said, signaling the waitress for more coffee. Because in 6 days you're going to walk into that boardroom and take back what's yours. By the time we left the diner, the first light of dawn was breaking over the city. I felt something I hadn't experienced in weeks: hope. It was fragile and uncertain, but it was enough to keep me moving forward. Marcus had underestimated me from the beginning. Perhaps that would finally work to my advantage. With the board meeting scheduled for Monday morning, I had exactly 5 days to prepare for the most important presentation of my career. This wouldn't be a normal technical briefing. It would be a strategic defense of my intellectual property and professional integrity. Every detail would matter. Jason and I developed a comprehensive strategy. We would need irrefutable evidence, perfect timing, and flawless delivery. Most importantly, I would need to maintain absolute secrecy until the moment of revelation. The first priority was gathering and organizing all documentation that proved my ownership of the technology. I retrieved the patent certificate and supporting documentation from my apartment. Next came my research journals, each page dated and detailed, showing the evolution of the concept from initial idea through final formulation. I compiled receipts for materials purchased with my personal credit card and photographs, time-stamped from my home and secret lab space, showing the development process. Jason helped me create a concise, powerful presentation that laid out the timeline of my innovation in parallel with Marcus's actions. We included screenshots of the email where my initial presentation was scheduled, the meeting notes from when Marcus dismissed my concept, and documentation showing the formation of Craig's team weeks later. Rebecca provided crucial internal documents, Marcus's project approval for Craig's team, using language strikingly similar to my original proposal meeting, minutes showing the accelerated timeline, and most damning, a draft of an email where Marcus discussed how to differentiate the formulation just enough from the original concept. How did you get this? I asked her, stunned by the explicit evidence of deliberate theft. Marcus asks me to draft sensitive emails sometimes. Then he edits them before sending. Rebecca explained. I keep copies of everything as professional backup. Company policy, actually. With the evidence compiled, we moved to logistics. Rebecca confirmed that as a supporting technical resource, I would be in the boardroom but not listed as a presenter. My name would appear near the bottom of the attendee list, likely overlooked by Marcus during his preparation. You'll be called on if there are technical questions Craig can't answer, she explained. Marcus considers this unlikely, since he's coached Craig extensively. But company protocol requires a subject matter expert as backup. My presentation needed to be accessible from any device, so I created multiple backups, cloud storage, a secure email to myself, a USB drive, and copies on both my personal and work laptops. I couldn't risk technical difficulties at the crucial moment. Jason helped me rehearse my delivery, playing the role of various board members and anticipating possible questions and objections. We ran through dozens of scenarios from best case to worst case. What if Marcus interrupts me immediately and tries to shut me down? I asked during one practice session. Address Daniel directly, Jason advised. Say, Mr. Right, I have critical information regarding the true origin of this technology that the board needs to hear before making any decisions. He values innovation enough to at least listen. We worked through my emotional delivery as well. I needed to project confidence without appearing aggressive, remain factual while conveying the injustice, and demonstrate professionalism despite the betrayal I had experienced. The patent is your trump card, Jason reminded me. Hold it until the moment of maximum impact, when Marcus is fully committed to his version of events, when he's claimed complete departmental credit. That's when you reveal that the government has already recognized you as the legitimate inventor. The weekend before the meeting, I barely slept. I reviewed my presentation repeatedly, refining wording and practicing my delivery until it felt natural. I selected my outfit carefully, a charcoal gray suit that conveyed seriousness and authority, with a deep blue blouse that would stand out in a room likely dominated by white shirts and dark ties. Sunday night, my nerves nearly overwhelmed me. What if this backfired spectacularly? What if Marcus had anticipated my move and prepared a counter strategy? What if the board sided with him despite the evidence? The potential for professional suicide was very real. I called Allison, needing her steadying influence. Though still recovering from surgery, she listened intently to my situation and planned approach. You've done everything right, Francis, she assured me. The patent is definitive. Just remember that in that boardroom, you're not asking for favors or special treatment. You're standing up for what is legally and ethically yours. That gives you the moral high ground. Her confidence helped calm my racing thoughts. I'm terrified, I admitted. Use that energy, she advised. Channel it into precision and clarity, and know that whatever happens tomorrow, you've already won by refusing to be silenced. Monday morning arrived with a crystal clear sky and autumn crispness in the air. I arrived at the office 90 minutes early, giving myself time to center my thoughts and review my materials one final time. The building was quiet, with only security staff and a few early arrivals present. I went to the executive floor where the boardroom was located, a space I'd visited only twice before in 6 years with the company. Rebecca had arranged access for me to set up and test the presentation system. Everything's ready, she confirmed, meeting me outside the boardroom. Your materials are loaded in the system as a backup presentation. You're on the attendee list. I've placed you here. She showed me a seating chart where you'll have clear eye contact with Daniel. Board members began arriving 45 minutes before the scheduled start. Through the glass walls, I watched them gather, helping themselves to coffee and engaging in casual conversation. Daniel Wright arrived 20 minutes early, his presence commanding immediate attention from everyone in the room. At exactly 8:45, 15 minutes before the meeting, Marcus arrived with Craig and 2 other team members. Marcus looked confident and relaxed, shaking hands with board members and engaging in easy conversation. He didn't notice me waiting quietly in an adjacent meeting room, reviewing my notes one final time. At 8:55, Rebecca signaled me. It was time to enter the boardroom and take my seat before the formal start of the meeting. My heart pounded so loudly, I was certain others could hear it, but my expression remained calm and professional as I took my assigned seat near the back of the room. Marcus glanced at me with mild surprise, then dismissal clearly, assuming I was there merely as technical support. He had no idea that in less than 30 minutes, his carefully constructed deception would collapse completely. The boardroom clock showed exactly 9 o'clock. Daniel called the meeting to order, and the most important confrontation of my professional life began. The boardroom of Nexus Innovations exuded power and prestige. The massive oval table of polished walnut dominated the space, surrounded by 14 high-backed leather chairs. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the Boston skyline. Every detail from the recessed lighting to the state-of-the-art presentation system was designed to impress. 10 board members were present, along with Daniel Wright and 3 other executive officers. Marcus stood at the head of the table, Craig positioned supportively at his side. I sat quietly at the far end, attempting to appear inconspicuous while my pulse raced. "Good morning, everyone," Daniel began. "We have an exciting presentation today from our R&D department regarding a breakthrough in sustainable packaging. Marcus, the floor is yours." Marcus stepped forward with practiced confidence. "Thank you, Daniel. Ladies and gentlemen, today represents a pivotal moment for Nexus Innovations and our industry as a whole." His opening slides featured dramatic images of plastic pollution in oceans and landfills, establishing the environmental problem his solution would address. He moved through market analysis and competitive positioning with smooth authority. "The challenge of truly biodegradable packaging has plagued our industry for decades," Marcus continued. "Existing solutions compromise either functionality or decomposition rates. Today, I'm proud to present a technology that finally resolves this dilemma." My stomach tightened as he introduced the technical specifications of Nexus EcoBreak packaging material. Every detail described was fundamentally my innovation, from the cellulose polymer matrix to the enzyme activation triggers. This proprietary formulation maintains full structural integrity during normal use, but decomposes completely within 21 days in standard composting conditions, Marcus explained using almost the exact wording from my rejected presentation. He gestured to Craig. "The brilliant team led by Craig Thompson has achieved what many considered impossible. Craig, perhaps you can elaborate on the development process." Craig stepped forward, delivering his rehearsed explanation of how his team had approached the challenge. I watched board members nodding with appreciation, completely unaware of the fraud unfolding before them. "The market implications are substantial," Marcus continued, advancing to financial projections. "Conservative estimates suggest a 30% premium over standard packaging, with manufacturing costs only 12% higher. The projected 5-year revenue impact exceeds $300 million. Board members were visibly impressed. One leaned forward to examine the chart more closely. Another made notes with an expensive fountain pen. "Beyond financial returns, this innovation positions Nexus as the environmental leader in our industry," Marcus added. "The PR and marketing value alone justifies the investment in scaling production." Daniel Wright nodded approvingly. "Impressive work, Marcus. The timing couldn't be better with increased regulatory pressure on sustainable packaging." "Thank you, Daniel. We anticipate filing patent applications next week, with production scaling to begin in second quarter next year." Filing patent applications. The audacity of his statement nearly made me gasp aloud. He had no idea the patent had already been granted to me. Marcus concluded his formal presentation, opening the floor for questions. Several board members inquired about technical details, which Craig answered competently, having been thoroughly coached on my research. "I have a question about production scalability," one board member asked. "Do we have the expertise in-house to manufacture this at volume?" Marcus nodded confidently. "Excellent question. We've conducted preliminary scaling tests with promising results." He glanced toward me for the first time. "Francis Parker from our technical team has reviewed the production requirements." "Francis, anything to add on scalability?" This was it, the opening I needed. I rose from my seat, heart pounding but voice steady. "Thank you, Marcus. Yes, I do have some information to share regarding this technology. I moved to the presentation console and tapped the screen to access my prepared slides. What are you doing? Marcus asked, confusion giving way to alarm. Providing complete information to the board, I replied calmly, making eye contact with Daniel Wright. Mr. Wright, distinguished board members, there's critical context about this innovation that you need to understand before proceeding. Marcus stepped toward me. This isn't part of the presentation. Francis is here only as technical support. Daniel held up a hand. Let's hear what she has to say, Marcus. My first slide appeared a timeline showing my original concept development presentation to the department, Marcus's rejection, and the subsequent formation of Craig's team. 8 months ago, I developed the enzymatically activated biodegradable packaging concept you've just seen presented, I explained. 3 months ago, I presented it to the R&D department, where it was publicly dismissed by VP Cooper as unoriginal and commercially non-viable. Marcus's face flushed red. This is inappropriate and inaccurate. Francis is misrepresenting. Please let her finish, Daniel interrupted, his expression intensifying. I advanced to documentation of my rejected presentation, showing side-by-side comparisons with the current slides. The similarities were undeniable. 4 weeks after rejecting my concept, Mr. Cooper established a new initiative under Craig Thompson using nearly identical technology parameters. Craig looked at the floor, unable to meet the questioning gazes now directed at him. These are serious allegations, a female board member noted. Do you have substantiating evidence beyond presentation similarities? Yes, Miss Keller, I do. I displayed my meticulous research documentation, material receipts, and time-stamped development photographs. I continued developing this technology independently, using personal resources and non-company time, documenting every stage of the process. Marcus found his voice. If you conducted this research, which I dispute, using any company resources or knowledge gained through employment here, it remains Nexus property regardless. I had anticipated this exact argument. I was extremely careful to avoid any such conflicts. All materials were purchased with personal funds. Development occurred in off-site locations during non-working hours. Marcus scoffed. Impossible to verify, and frankly the board shouldn't be subjected to this disgruntled employee's baseless claims interrupting an important presentation. Daniel studied me carefully. Francis, these are significant accusations against a senior executive. What specifically are you asking of this board today? The moment had arrived. I took a deep breath and revealed my final slide. I'm not asking the board to determine ownership based solely on my word against Mr. Cooper's. The United States Patent Office has already made that determination. I displayed the official patent certificate, my name clearly visible as the recognized inventor. Patent number 1073629 for enzymatically activated biodegradable packaging material was approved and issued to me, Francis Parker, last week. This is the exact technology presented today as a Nexus innovation awaiting patent application. The boardroom fell completely silent. Marcus stared at the screen in obvious shock. Craig took a small step away from him, physical distance mirroring the sudden professional separation. Daniel broke the silence. Marcus, were you aware of this patent? Marcus struggled to compose himself. No, this is the first. There must be some mistake. There's no mistake, I said, displaying the full patent documentation. The application was submitted 3 months ago, following Mr. Cooper's public rejection of the concept. The certificate was issued last week, establishing legal ownership. Marcus's face had lost all color. This is corporate theft. Using company knowledge to file a personal patent. Actually, I interrupted, my voice stronger. Now I have signed affidavits from 2 independent consultants who verified my development process occurred without using Nexus resources. My employment contract specifically excludes innovations developed without company resources and outside working hours. The female board member who had questioned me earlier studied the patent documentation carefully. The timing and documentation appear to support Miss Parker's account. This is deeply concerning. Daniel's expression had hardened. Marcus stepped outside with me for a moment. Craig, you too. He looked at the board members. Let's take a 15-minute recess. As they left the room, several board members approached to examine my documentation more closely. One elderly gentleman nodded approvingly. Well done, young lady. Protecting your intellectual property shows foresight beyond your years. Another board member, a woman with silver hair and penetrating eyes, asked pointed questions about the technology itself, seeming satisfied with my detailed responses. Through the glass walls, I could see Daniel engaged in intense conversation with Marcus in an adjacent room. Marcus's gestures became increasingly defensive, while Daniel's posture remained rigid with obvious anger. After exactly 15 minutes, Daniel returned alone and called the meeting back to order. The board needs to address several significant issues raised today, he announced. First, Marcus Cooper has been placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation into these allegations. Second, we need to determine the appropriate path forward regarding this technology. He turned to me. Miss Parker, Nexus is obviously interested in your innovation. While the patent is in your name, would you be open to discussing how we might commercialize this technology together? I had prepared for this question. Yes, Mr. Wright. I developed this at Nexus because I believe in our company's potential to lead sustainable innovation. I would welcome good faith negotiations for licensing or other arrangements that recognize my contribution appropriately. Daniel nodded approvingly. Excellent. Our legal team will contact you to begin discussions. He addressed the entire room. This meeting has taken an unexpected turn, but ultimately revolutionary innovation is what we seek regardless of its path to our boardroom. As the meeting adjourned, board members filed out, several nodding respectfully in my direction. When the room had emptied except for Daniel and myself, he approached me directly. That took considerable courage, he said quietly. Why didn't you come to me directly when this situation developed? Organizational hierarchy, I replied honestly. And without the patent approval, it would have been my word against a trusted VP. Daniel considered this, then nodded. Fair assessment. For what it's worth, I believe we have much to discuss about your future at Nexus. Innovation and integrity are a powerful combination. As I gathered my materials, the magnitude of what had just occurred began to sink in. In the span of 30 minutes, I had transformed from victim to victor, from overlooked engineer to recognized innovator. The path forward remained uncertain, but for the first time in months, I felt in control of my professional destiny. The days following the boardroom confrontation passed in a blur of meetings, emotions, and adjustments. The immediate aftermath was both vindicating and overwhelming. Within hours of the board meeting, security escorted Marcus from the building. His personal items packed in a cardboard box, his 15-year career at Nexus effectively overpending the official investigation. News spread through the company like wildfire despite HR's attempts to control the narrative. By lunchtime, colleagues, who had previously avoided eye contact, were suddenly finding reasons to pass by my desk or invite me to coffee. I maintained professional composure, neither gloating nor sharing internal details, though the temptation to reveal everything was strong. 3 days after the meeting, Daniel called me to his office. The view from the executive floor was breathtaking, the Charles River winding through Boston like a blue ribbon. I had never been in the CEO's private office before. Francis, please sit down. He gestured to a comfortable chair across from his desk. First, I want to personally apologize for what happened under my leadership. A complete failure of our values and processes. I nodded, appreciating his directness. The board has reached several decisions I want to share with you first, he continued. Marcus's employment has been terminated for ethical violations and attempted misappropriation of intellectual property. A thorough review of his previous projects is underway. And Craig, I asked? On probation with mandatory ethics training. Our investigation suggests he was pressured by Marcus, though that doesn't excuse his participation. Daniel leaned forward, More importantly, we want to offer you leadership of the biodegradable packaging project with a promotion to Senior Director of Sustainable Innovation. The offer exceeded my expectations. That's a significant jump from my current position. It is, Daniel acknowledged. But you've demonstrated not just technical brilliance, but ethical leadership under extreme pressure. Those are precisely the qualities we need in senior management. We spent the next hour discussing terms, including substantial compensation increases, budget authority for the project, and a team reporting directly to me. Most importantly, we addressed the patent. Our legal team proposes a licensing arrangement, Daniel explained. Nexus pays you a personal licensing fee while maintaining exclusive commercial rights. The arrangement acknowledges your ownership while giving us market protection. The terms were generous, including an immediate payment of $600,000 and ongoing royalties once the product reached market. I agreed in principle pending review by my newly hired intellectual property attorney. 2 weeks later, I walked into my first meeting as project leader. The conference room fell silent as I entered 20 engineers looking to me for direction. Among them was Jason, recently promoted to technical lead, and surprisingly, Craig, looking uncomfortable but present. "Good morning, everyone," I began. "Today we start building something revolutionary together. Not just a sustainable packaging technology, but a new culture of innovation where every voice and contribution is valued." I made direct eye contact with Craig, who had the grace to look ashamed. We learned from mistakes and moved forward together. The team responded with enthusiasm, and over the following months, we made remarkable progress refining the technology for commercial scale. The work was challenging but deeply satisfying, especially as early production trials validated all our projections. Allison returned from medical leave to find the department transformed. During our first lunch together after her return, she listened intently to the full story. "I always knew you had this in you, Francis," she said proudly. "Not just the innovation, but the courage to stand up for yourself." Allison became an even stronger advocate for women in the company, and together, we established a mentorship program specifically for female engineers. The Parker Reed Initiative, as it became known, paired junior women with senior mentors who could help navigate both technical challenges and company politics. The experience changed me profoundly. The Frances who had timidly accepted dismissal of her ideas was gone, replaced by a leader who spoke with confidence and expected respect. I developed a reputation for both innovation and fairness, creating a team culture where ideas were evaluated on merit, regardless of their source. 6 months after the boardroom confrontation, Daniel invited me to present our progress to the same board that had witnessed Marcus's downfall. Standing at the head of that walnut table, I felt a profound sense of rightness. "The first commercial production run of Nexus EcoBreak packaging begins next month," I announced with pride. "Initial customer response to samples has exceeded our projections, with pre-orders already exceeding capacity for the first quarter." The board responded with enthusiastic support and approved additional funding for expanded production facilities. As the meeting concluded, the silver-haired board member, who had questioned me closely during my revelation, approached. "You've done exceptional work, Miss Parker," she said warmly. "Not just with the technology, but with rebuilding the team. The culture shift in R&D is noticeable throughout the company." That evening, I walked through the manufacturing area, where equipment for the new production line was being installed. Seeing my name on the patent documents displayed proudly at the entrance brought a wave of emotion I hadn't anticipated. The journey from desperate defense of my work to leading its implementation had been extraordinary. The healing process wasn't instantaneous or complete. For months, I experienced occasional anxiety attacks, particularly before important presentations. The fear that someone would again dismiss or attempt to steal my work lingered like a shadow. But with each successful project milestone, the shadow receded further. Perhaps the most unexpected outcome was my relationship with Rebecca, Marcus's former assistant. Initially placed in an awkward position after his departure, she eventually joined my team in a project coordination role where her organizational skills proved invaluable. I watched 3 other innovations get redirected to Marcus's favored team members over the years, she confided during a late planning session. You were the first to fight back effectively. Her comment highlighted how many voices had been silenced before mine, how many innovations might have been lost or misattributed. It strengthened my resolve to create a department where credit was given fairly and ideas could come from anywhere. 1 year after that fateful board meeting, Nexus eco-brake packaging launched officially at a major industry conference. Standing on stage with my team, watching the demonstration video, showing our material-protecting products, then completely biodegrading in commercial composting conditions, I felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. The journey had transformed not just my career, but my understanding of myself. I had discovered reserves of courage and determination I hadn't known existed. The woman who had once accepted dismissal of her ideas had become someone who fought effectively for recognition and justice. The lessons were profound and lasting. Innovation requires not just technical brilliance, but the courage to defend your contributions. Workplace politics can be navigated with integrity if you build the right alliances and maintain meticulous documentation. Most importantly, standing up for yourself doesn't just benefit you, it creates space for others to be recognized and valued. Today, my name appears on 8 additional patents, each representing innovations developed by my growing team. Each certificate hangs in our department's main corridor, a visible reminder that at Nexus Innovations, creators receive proper credit for their work. If you're watching this and facing similar challenges in your workplace, remember that documenting your contributions isn't paranoid, it's prudent. Building a network of allies isn't political, it's essential. And speaking up isn't just for your benefit, it helps create a more equitable environment for everyone. Have you ever had to stand up for your work or ideas when someone tried to dismiss or take credit for them? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more real-life workplace experiences. Share this video with someone who might need encouragement to stand up for their contributions. Thank you for listening to my journey from dismissed to vindicated, and remember, your ideas have value and so does your voice.